Seahawks Today coming up in just a few moments, but before we do, we want to make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. We have new videos each and every day here on Seahawks Today, and we're trying to make sure that we don't get passed up by our friends at Dolphins Today. Will Scott and those guys, they're a little weird. We don't want them on our level here. Seahawk fans, step it up. Make sure you are subscribed to Seahawks Today. Turn those noties on, youtube.com/Seahawks TV to get the latest Seahawks news and rumors. Welcome into Seahawks Today. Tyler Jones here with you. Appreciate you joining us. Coming up on today's show, we are talking about NFL draft prospects Jermaine Johnson II and Trevor Penning, as well as details on the new contract for Geno Smith as he makes his return to Seattle. But before we get started with the show, it is a special holiday of some sorts, and a lot of people in Seattle, I imagine, are partaking in it. Happy 420. Spam the comments with 420. Let it be known how excited you are about today. Just type in 420. That's all you got to say. And you can certainly let your voice be heard about this day. It only comes once a year. Here's your chance to celebrate. Type 420 in the comments if you're excited about this very special day across the state of Washington. News today regarding Geno Smith. His contract was disapproved by the National Football League initially, and we still haven't figured out why that happened according to Rap Sheet, but it looks like it will get fixed. Maybe the NFL was just simply saying, are you sure you want to give Geno Smith $7 million? Here's the latest on Geno's contract. He is going to be paid for 1 year, $3.5 million officially against the cap. That includes $500,000 guaranteed. And then there will be an additional $3.5 million in incentives. If you recall, he started 3 games for Seattle in 2021 when Russell Wilson was hurt. His career record for the former second-round pick, not the best, just 13-21. Looking at the quarterback room now for the Seahawks with Geno Smith coming back, Drew Lock would probably be the starter as of right now. And Geno Smith, that number 2 quarterback, with Jacob Eason, the number 3 quarterback, but it's still an open competition, and that's what Pete Carroll wanted going into training camp, was a quarterback competition. So slight edge to Drew Lock, but you can't imagine that being much. Drew Lock played not great in his 3 years in Denver. Geno Smith, his career has been nothing impressive by any means, but this past year was okay, I guess, when he filled in for Russell Wilson there. So now you look at Geno Smith. He knows the system in place, so the question becomes, do you give Geno a chance to be that guy? Do you believe in Geno Smith? Here's your chance to weigh in and tell us in the comment section. Type Y for yes, type N for no. If you believe Geno Smith could get it done for the Seahawks, could he push this team to the playoffs if he was given the chance to be the starter? Type Y for yes, type N for no if you believe in Geno Smith. Now, personally, I think that Geno Smith is nothing more than a backup. He is not a starting caliber quarterback in the National Football League. He's had plenty of chances to prove otherwise, but Geno's just not your guy, folks. I mean, simple as that, right? Geno Smith, you have the body, the intangibles, those things, they look good if you were just to step back and evaluate him, but then when you look at what he actually does on the field, it's just not good. Geno Smith, to me, I thought the Seahawks way overpaid $7 million for this guy who hasn't been that great throughout his career at this point. We'll see what Pete Carroll and company were thinking. The one plus is that he knows the system in place, but that's all I can point to of why that you would even consider paying Geno Smith that money. But we'll see what happens. He is a good backup, but I'm not giving this guy 17 games as a starter next year. I'll pass on that. Now, the NFL draft coming up in just a week. Maybe the Seahawks draft a quarterback. I know that I certainly would like to see somebody compete with Geno Smith and Drew Lock. And we have some great draft hats available, so you can look like what the Seahawks draft, and you can see these things are snazzy. Maybe you're a flat bill guy. Maybe you like a baseball cap. whatever it may be, you have plenty of options. And the only way to get your hands on these draft hats, chatsports.com/Seahawks draft, if you want to wear one of these things and look like some of the top prospects and some of the future members of the Seattle Seahawks. Chatsports.com/Seahawks draft to get your hands on one of these draft hats. With the NFL draft coming up in just a few days, the Seahawks hold that number 9 pick, and we're going to look into some scenarios for the Seahawks. And one idea for the Seahawks at number 9, a name that we haven't talked about a whole lot, is Jermaine Johnson II, the edge rusher out of Florida State. Let's tell you about him. First-team All-American last year, ACC Defensive Player of the Year. He started his career at Georgia, bet on himself, and transferred to Florida State, and he was impressive last year, and he's being compared to Maxx Crosby. Now, you look at the evaluation from Joe Marino of the Draft Network. Here's what he had to say in regards to Johnson. As a pass rusher, Johnson is quick off the ball, has terrific length, a variety of rush moves, takes good angles, and relentlessly pursues the quarterback. As a run defender, Johnson is an exceptional processor that is stout at the point of attack, understands how to respond to blocking schemes, effectively stacks and sheds blocks, and is a consistent finisher. So a lot of good praise there for Jermaine Johnson II out of Florida State. And I got to tell you, if you're looking for an edge rusher, this is a good possibility here for the Seahawks at number 9, if he's still around potentially. Of all the names we've talked about, a lot about Evan Neal at that offensive tackle spot or Charles Cross. Edge here with Jermaine Johnson II, I think is a pretty good call. He had almost a sack in every game last year at Florida State in the ACC. This is a guy that has a lot of talent, that has already proven that he can play at a high level in the Power 5 this past year. I like the idea of Jermaine Johnson potentially for the Seahawks at this spot. Now, in a moment, we'll talk about the offensive tackle, another name that we haven't mentioned a whole lot in Trevor Penning, but I want to know from you guys. Obviously, the Seahawks are going to have to take an offensive tackle and an edge rusher within those first few rounds of the draft. But which one's a bigger priority for the Seahawks? What do they need more? Here's your chance to weigh in. Type O for offensive tackle. Type E for edge. Let your voice be heard. You'll get an ad break, and while that ad's playing, get those votes in and let us know what you think, what the priority should be. O for offensive tackle, E for edge. Trevor Penning from Northern Iowa was a first-team all-conference performer in the Missouri Valley Football Conference this past year. A 3-year starter at the left tackle spot and was just impressive as can be. Here's the scouting report from ESPN's Matt Miller. You know what's crazy? The hardest hitter might be an offensive tackle. It might be Trevor Penning from Northern Iowa, who has a reputation of being a mauler, maybe playing a little bit too close to the whistle. Super physical, was getting in fights at the Senior Bowl. He is definitely one of the hardest hitters. Now, you're going to hear from people criticize Penning that, well, he played in the FCS. Who did he really play? I don't care about that. Look at what he did in the Senior Bowl. He held his own against the best of the best in the NFL draft. 6'7", over 300 pounds. And when you're talking about a guy that makes a lot of contact, it's a heavy hitter, that's exactly what I want to hear about an offensive lineman. Only allowed 1 sack. This guy is terrific. I really am excited about Trevor Penning. And for the Seahawks, if you like Penning, you don't have to get him at 9. That's what the silver lining in all this is for the Seahawks, is that you can trade down. You could go get an additional draft pick or 2. Maybe it's next year. Maybe it's later in the round. I don't know. But whatever it may be, there is potential to be gained by trading down for Penning and getting draft capital elsewhere. So this could be a good move for the Seahawks if they want to draft an offensive lineman. You don't necessarily have to go ahead and get Cross or Evan Neal with that number 9 pick. You could potentially trade down, gain some draft capital, and get a really good find in Trevor Penning, who's been under the radar there at Northern Iowa.